Well, Labour's not the only one of our major political parties that's descended into arguments about hate speech. Boris Johnson wrote a piece for The Telegraph this morning about a ban on women wearing burkas and niqabs in Denmark. He came down clearly against such a ban, but in the process managed to say about Muslim women wearing them as, quote, "It is absolutely ridiculous that people should choose to go around looking like letterboxes." He separately said they look like bank robbers. Now, you have to ask yourself, how would that have sounded if something similar was said by Jeremy Corbyn of Orthodox Jews? Well, there's been a pretty sharp reaction to the Johnson column. Alex is with me now. Alex, how is this going down in the Tory party?
Well, as you might imagine, really. I mean, Boris Johnson is, of course, known for language that can be colourful but often becomes highly controversial. And I think this is fairly firmly one of those occasions. I think his supporters would point out the premise of this piece, which was arguing against, as you said, the so-called burqa ban. But it is the language that he uses which has attracted such criticism. That letterbox comment in particular. He's been accused of pandering to the far right to try and further his own political ambition. And what is crucial to all of this is not just Boris Johnson, but the context in which it comes, because the Conservative Party has been accused for some time of failing to do enough to tackle Islamophobia within its ranks.
Saeed Avasi's been on this programme making that exact accusation.
And some other groups too. The Muslim Council of Britain, for example, the Conservative Muslim Forum, who say there needs to be a full review looking at the extent of this issue, how deep it runs, how far it goes. Now, the party itself would point out that when cases are brought to its attention, it very quickly deals with them. It says it suspends people and holds investigations. Brandon Lewis, the chairman, has promised to stamp it out. There's going to be diversity training. But I think what these comments will do will fuel those calls for an inquiry and the criticism that the party needs to do more.
Alex, thank you very much. Well, we did invite Mr Johnson to join us tonight, but he wasn't available. Conservative HQ couldn't find anyone for us either. But with me now, though, is Mohammed Amin. He's the chair of the Conservative Muslim Forum, we just heard referred to. And I'm also joined by Politico's Jack Blanchard. Good evening to you both. What was your reaction when you saw the Johnson piece earlier today?
I was horrified by the article. This should have been a good article about opposing the Danish niqab ban. But instead, Boris spent about half the article slagging off Muslim women. And those remarks were outrageous and offensive. And Boris is a master of the English language. He knew exactly what he was saying, how his remarks would be understood, how inflammatory they were. He's pandering to those people in our society who think that Muslims are alien, that Islam has no place in Britain. And why he's doing that, I just don't understand.
What should the party do about it?
I would like the party leader to call Boris into her office to reprimand him and to say, if you do this again, we will withdraw the whip.
Withdraw the whip, threaten to withdraw the whip from Boris Johnson. Currently, by the way, he is on the Conservative home poll, the favourite to lead the party. I mean, he's the one that the members like most.
Absolutely. It's deplorable that somebody who was our Foreign Secretary until recently is talked about seriously as a potential leader of the Conservative Party, is saying these things about women in our society who choose to wear clothing for religious reasons.
Why do you stay in the party that is, in your view, failing to deal with a problem of Islamophobia?
I've been a party member for 35 years, and the reason I stay in the party is I believe what the party stands for. I do not believe that the party as a party is anti-Muslim. I do not believe the leadership of the party is anti-Muslim, but it needs to get a grip on this issue.
What is interesting is we have for weeks been talking about Labour's anti-Semitism problem. Your party has been quite happy to both watch and applaud to the criticism of Labour. This is the same, isn't it?
It's not quite the same, but nevertheless, parts of the Conservative Party seem to be hoping that this issue will go away. The party chairman has promised the zero-tolerance approach to Islamophobia, and I will be asking him what he's going to do about Boris Johnson.
Let me turn to Jack Blanchard. Did Boris know what he was writing? Boris Johnson know what he was writing when he wrote those words?
I mean, Boris Johnson is an experienced journalist, was long in the profession before he became a politician. He knows exactly what he's writing every time he picks up a pen, and he's well aware of the impact that it's going to have. It's all very carefully thought through, I've got no doubt about that.
Right. So give us the tactic or the strategy that lies behind that. Is this because he was called a Poundland Trump by Labour MP David Lammy, and we had those references to Trump in a bit of leaked audio of him talking at a dinner a few weeks back. Is he trying to be the Trump?
That's right, and we also learned that he recently had contact with Trump's former chief strategist, Steve Bannon, as well, only in the last few weeks when he was over in the UK. There is a sort of tendency amongst politicians to look at Donald Trump and see if they can learn from the model that he has sort of created to success. I mean, Jeremy Corbyn is another who has, in a very different way, looked at some of the things Trump has done and tried to see if he can find some success in that. So I think there probably is some truth in that. Whether that's precisely what Boris is doing on this front, I couldn't say for sure. But I do think that everything that Boris Johnson does and has done since he resigned last month has got to be seen through the prism of the Conservative Party leadership. In the end, that is his goal. That is what he's looking at. We all know that Theresa May is unlikely to be the Prime Minister at the next election. Someone else is going to come into that job, and Boris is very keen to make sure that when that time comes, if it's this autumn or next spring or next summer, he is the prime candidate to do that.
The really important question is, what does it tell us about the Conservative Party that Boris Johnson thinks the way to their hearts is to sort of write these comments?
I think there's been a long sort of history, a long undercurrent of a reactionary tendency in some parts of the Conservative Party, and a lot of that went away to UKIP some years ago and has started to come back. But it's very important that whoever wants to be the next Prime Minister can appeal to the Conservative Party grassroots, you know, those 100,000 people who will probably be selecting the next Prime Minister. Now, you know, Boris clearly thinks that within that group, if you make a nod here to a certain prejudice, then there is a chance that that can win extra support for you.
I mean, of course, the article was, you know, split between the Liberal Boris Johnson and the Conservative Boris Johnson, in that it was against the ban and it was making fun of Muslim women. I mean, which is the real Boris Johnson, and what does he believe?
Well, that is the £350 million a week question, isn't it? What does he really believe? Honestly, I don't know. I mean, you know, Boris Johnson comes from a pretty liberal background. He was Mayor of London for 8 years. He has also written things in the past that people have described as Islamophobic before, and other things he said about other groups in society as well, which have certainly been very controversial. What he really thinks, honestly, I don't know. Does anybody really know?
Last very quick one to you, Mohammed Amin. I mean, what do you think it says about your party that he thinks that's the way to make himself popular in it?
It's discouraging that Boris seems to believe that he can win the party leadership by appearing as an anti-Muslim bigot. That is dispiriting.
All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you both very much indeed.